Chapter 1, Ancient Origins. Under and back of the universe, time and space and change is ever to be found. The substantial reality, the fundamental truth. Ancient Origins, the Ethiopian Egyptian origin of yoga. Since according to Manetho, high priest of Egypt, and other ancient writers, there have been many periods of history and civilizations which have come and gone. The current historical period is only one in a series of historical periods. There is no one beginning and there is no one end. However, the ancient mystical wisdom is the same from age to age. It is the same origin. The current age begins in Africa, Ethiopia, Egypt. Oral traditions claim that Asa was the first king of Egypt, and that he and Aset were actually a god and goddess, divine beings who came to earth to establish civilization. They are said to have arrived on the earth about 18,000 BC and to have left the earth around 10,000 BC. Diodorus Siculus, Greek historian, writes in the time of Augustus, 1st century BC, "Now the Ethiopians, as historians relate, were the first of all men, and the proofs of the statement they say are manifest." Okay, it's according to what they say. They have been revealed, right? All these claims, the proofs have been revealed. For that they did not come into the land as immigrants from abroad, but were the natives of it. They were the indigenous, right? They're always there. And so justly bear the name of Autochthones, sprung from the soil itself, as they maintain, conceded by practically all men. And they go on about the Egyptians being colonists, sent out by the Ethiopians, Asa having been the leader of the colony. For speaking generally, what is now Egypt, they maintain, was not land but sea, when in the beginning the universe was being formed. Afterwards, however, as the Nile, during the times of its inundation, carried down the mud from Ethiopia, land was gradually built up from the deposit, and the larger parts of the customs of the Egyptians are they hold Ethiopian, the colonists still preserving the ancient manners. For instance, the belief that the kings are gods, etc., etc. The kind of writing which Egyptians had, or have, that which is known as popular Demotic. They went from Semitic, writing from right to left, to this hieroglyphic Demotic language. And it's learned by everyone. That's in the book Timetables of History by Bernard Grun, revised edition that we got. And it's learned by everyone, while that which is called sacred hieratic, means it's like passed on to the firstborns, right? Possibly. Is only understood by the priests of the Egyptians, who learnt it from their fathers as one of the things which are not divulged. So it's something that's passed on to the oldest son, the heir, the head, the chief of the descendants, right? The man, okay, and all this sort of stuff. It's got the ancient Egyptian text state where Kemet apparently was situated. From a philosophical standpoint, the question as to the origin of humanity is redundant when it is understood that all came from one origin, which some choose to call the Big Bang and others the Supreme Being. Historical evidence proves that Ethiopia and Nubia already had kingdoms at least 300 years before the first kingdom pharaoh of Egypt. Ancient Egypt was a colony of Nubia, Ethiopia, Asa having been the leader of the colony. And upon his return to Greece, they gathered around and asked, "Tell us about this great land of the blacks called Ethiopia." And Herodotus said there are two great Ethiopian nations, one in Sind, India, and the other in Egypt. Recorded by Egyptian high priest Manetho, 300 BC. Also recorded by Diodorus, Greek historian, 100 BC. The pyramids themselves, however, cannot be dated, but indications are that they existed far back in antiquity. The pyramid text hieroglyphics inscribed on pyramid walls and coffin text hieroglyphics inscribed on coffins speak authoritatively on the constitution of the human spirit, the vital life force along the human spinal cord, known in India as Kundalini, the immortality of the soul, reincarnation, and the law of cause and effect, known in India as the law of karma. And on the meaning of the hieroglyphs, we must now speak of the Ethiopian writing, which is called hieroglyphic by the Egyptians, in order that we may omit nothing in our discussion of the author's discussion of the antiquities and so forth. So there's that correlation with between India and Egypt, ancient Egypt. On the relationship between Egypt, Ethiopia and India. From Ethiopia, Asa passed through Arabia, bordering up upon the sea, Red Sea, to as far as India and the remotest inhabited coast. He built likewise many cities in India, one of which he called Nisa, or Nisa, willing to have remembrance of that Nisa, or Nisa, in Egypt where he was brought up. At this Nisa, or Nisa, in India he planted ivy, which continues to grow there, but nowhere else in India or around it. He left likewise many other marks of his being in those parts, by which the latter inhabitants are induced and do affirm that this god was born in India. He likewise addicted himself to the hunting of elephants, and took care to have statues of himself in every place as lasting monuments of his expedition. Recorded by Diodorus, Greek historian, 100 BC. A Latin work written for Roman Emperor Constantius states, India taken as a whole, beginning from the north and embracing what of it is subject to Persia, is a continuation of Egypt and the Ethiopians. Okay, so like it says this guy with this god went to India and basically lived there. It actually says he was born there, right? So he's go back there. He came from Ethiopia, passed through Arabia, boarding up the Red Seas to as far as India, etc., etc. And the later inhabitants are induced and do affirm that this god was born in India. Talking about Asa. Okay. A bit of confusion there maybe. It says he passed through the Arabian border, Arabia, etc., etc., and then he was born there. Okay, you may have a better understanding than us. It does seem confusing there. The Itinerarium Alexandria ACE 345. There are Egyptian columns as far off as Nyassa, Arabia, Aset and Asa, leading an army into India to the source of the Ganges and as far as the Indus Ocean. Recorded by Egyptian High Priest Manetho, 300 BC, and Diodorus, Greek historian, 100 BC. Other evidence of the connection between Egypt, the Middle East and East Asia include the inscriptions from the Egyptian Pharaoh Ramses III, which state that he sent naval expeditions to the far reaches of the world. This is verified by the ancient inscriptions found in the Mesopotamian area, which speak of a conqueror who used a standard composed of a ram's head with a snake overlooking it. This description matches the standard of Ramses III. Further, the practice of circumcision was believed by the ancients to have originated in Egypt. It was practiced by Palestinians, Jews, Colchians and other Asians who claim to have learned the practice from the Egyptians. And there's the information there. Commentary on History of Herodotus by Henry C. Rawlinson. Thus, the Indus Valley culture, earliest known civilization of India, which were later known as the Dravidians and Harappans, appears to have been culturally and economically connected to Ethiopia and Egypt. After the destruction of the Indus Valley culture by the Aryans, a warrior group from Europe, the Indus Valley culture emerged culturally with the Aryan descendants and further developed the wisdom of the mysteries into modern Indian philosophy, Vedanta. Descendants of the Indus Valley culture lives in India to this day. Okay, so that Aryan there is not a pure white supremacist faction. It's like a mixture of Indian other peoples, right? But later supremacists says, oh yeah. Then they came up with this Aryan thing, all these Nazi, that sort of thing as well. The pure Aryan race, all this sort of stuff. Well, each to its own. But that's what we realise, it says through our personal research, that these original Aryans were a mixture. Yeah, it's like Caucasians. We need to go and define it as a mixture as well. It's not just light brown people, black people, Asian people, whatever. There's whites in there as well, right? Maybe some went to the Caucasus Mountains and then eventually came down from there and merged with the other people, right? According to the histories, they were being subjected to, they were invaded, given a hard time, so they fled to the mountains, stayed up there for a while until it was all good, then they come down and merged with everybody else, apparently, according to historical claims, right? what was that book we had? Outline of History. H.G. Wells, who was a bit of a historian as well as a science fiction author. Okay, what's this here about the Sphinx and the pyramids by the look of it. Some Hindus claim the Nile to be one of their sacred rivers. They also regard as sacred the mountains of the moon in Uganda, Congo, and Mount Meru in Tanzania. Both in India and in the Indianized kingdoms, southern Mount Meru was regarded as a mythical dwelling place of the gods. Each of these statements reflect millennia old relationships between the blacks of Africa and South Asia. The Ethiopian Kebra Nagast regarded Western India as a portion of the Ethiopian Empire. Murugan, the god of mountains, the son of the mother goddess, is a prominent and typical deity of the Dravidian India. It is interesting to note that at least 25 tribes in East Africa worship Murunga as supreme god, and like the Dravidian god Murungan, the African Murungu resides in sacred mountains. From U.P. Upadhyaya, Dravidian and Negro-African International Journal of Dravidian Linguistics, V5, number 1, January 1976, page 39. In his Chronology of Ancient Egypt, end of Atlantean Age, antediluvian Egyptian civilization according to Manetho, 10,858 BCE, end of last great year and beginning of current one in which we live. 11,000 to 9,000 BCE, new conservative estimate of the construction of the Great Sphinx. Post-Diluvian pre-dynastic period, early Asian invasions, probably the Indians, etc. Right? The Great Pyramid, land occupied by various kingdoms made up of the decadence of the original Ethiopians and Egyptians. Land finally was divided into north and south. There's some supposed history there. Dates: invasion and occupation by the Persians, 340 BCE. So yeah, again it's talking about a correlation between ancient Egypt and ancient Hindus or India. We somehow came across this, we had this thought, hey, because of the war reliefs, hey, that guy looks really skinny. You know, like some Indian men are really, really skinny. There's no muscle on him at all. And then you have the Nubian that apparently this master is beaten because he's a slave, real big guy, Afamar, Shaka Amos type, right? You know, being beaten by this skinny king or whatever he was, leader. So I thought, hey, that war relief is basically telling us that perhaps these Indians were there. We didn't know they were Indians, right? We just had this thought, and we went past that guy walking down the street, and he was basically the same, tall, skinny, no meat on him. And I thought, oh, wow, there could be that connection there, right? Okay, we don't really remember any Indian saying, yeah, we came from there. We sort of had that inkling, but we aren't going to say, yeah, we read it online or something like that. Or we found it here, or we found it there. Invasion and occupation by the Greeks, 150 BC to 500 BCE. Invasion and occupation by the Romans, who instituted the systematic destruction of Egyptian temples and libraries to allow the rise of Christianity. Conclusion: the Indus, Kemet, Kush connection. It is clear from the historical record that the early civilizations of India, Indus, and of Africa, Egypt, Kemet, Ethiopia, Kush with a K, shared an intimate social, cultural, and genetic link. Both India and Egypt were invaded by violent groups from Eurasia, namely the Aryans and Asiatics, respectively, resulting in ethnic, social, and cultural changes. The Indus and Kemetic peoples became lighter in skin pigmentation as a result of mixes with the lighter-skinned foreigners. In addition, seemingly new philosophies and religions emerged. From this study, clues emerge as to the origin of the teachings of current world philosophies and religions. We may now see our present-day philosophies and religions as extensions of ancient wisdom, as opposed to irrelevant ideas belonging to alien civilizations from long ago, or foreigners. I guess we're saying that. That's what they're talking about. What the meaning? Understanding this connection allows us to integrate the current knowledge of philosophy and religion with the ancient wisdom which gave birth to it. supposedly according to these authors. The archaeological record, linguistic and mythological correspondences show that in the early times of antiquity, the entire area from Ethiopia to southern Eurasia to China was populated by a single group who shared cultural, social and genetic relations. Even today, pictures of Ethiopians, Nubians, Kushites, with a K, southern Indians and Dravidians, northern Indians from Orissa, Malaysians and southern Arabians show similarity in physical appearance and complexion. Inscriptions found in these areas support the idea that a mythological and philosophical unity existed throughout the area prior to the invasion from the north, Aryans, Eurasians and Asiatics. Yeah, because according to Dr. Henry Clark, is it? And the other one, John Yuhakan, or Yukahan, they were very nice. These Egyptians were very nice when there was a famine in Eurasia and Goshen and all that sort of thing. These people came, knocked on their door, basically said, hey, we're starving, there's a massive famine, all that sort of stuff, we're hungry. And they said, yeah, okay, come in here and we'll feed you. They really looked after them, all that sort of stuff, right? But as people, over time, they realised, they're all softies. They're kind, they're compassionate, whatever, they're feeding us, looking after us, clothing us, whatever. Okay, we'll start to take advantage of them, right? So they're not really partying up, but like in the morning, when all the Egyptians trying to sleep, all this sort of stuff, they're riding up and down in their chariots, making noise, yahoo, and all this sort of stuff, right? So apparently the king at that time got sick of it, etc., etc. So he says, Egypt for Egypt, get these fellas out, etc., etc. Yeah, they were. It's either these Hyksos or something like that. Yeah, they just were just annoying or something, making too much noise, driving the chariots up and down early in the morning, all times of the night time, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so he says, out with these guys. Had enough. Okay, it would be a mistake to assume that everything is known about all of the historical periods in Egyptian history since at the very least this would require the discovery of all its cities, monuments and temples, probably through the archaeological findings, right? Archaeologists, etc. It would be equally erroneous to assume that a definitive historical record of any period throughout human history is essential to the goal of enlightenment, since any and all histories and mythologies must ultimately be understood as relative realities. Even modern day society, with its many secret organisations, withholds vital historical information. Okay, you're talking about Freemasons, the Illuminati, New World Order, all those sort of secret brotherhoods, underground brotherhoods, all that sort of stuff, secret societies. They seem to withhold vital historical information about the events that shape our lives. Therefore, the purpose of making sense of history as best we can is to help us to better understand and unravel our own involvement in time and space as individuals or as members of a particular group, in order that we may see through the illusoriness of our associations and experiences. And talks more on that and goes into the yoga again. The African origins of civilization, religion, mysticism and yoga philosophy, and at that time it was supposed to be coming fall 2001, so it's probably already out. It was years and years ago. Chapter 2, philosophy. It's all these symbols, hieroglyphic, etc. The it's a sky goddess symbol, we believe. Looks like an ice cream, Ice cream in a cone. I don't know really what that is. It's got a description in it somewhere. Obviously, because it's got A, B, C, D after them, right? Okay, ancient mystical philosophy. God is everywhere and in all things, from the Bible, around 1500 BCE. Ancient mystical philosophy is, and goes into that, the precursor of religion and yoga. Here it says something about Einstein. Teachings are the writings of masters who are able to control their minds and bodies in such a way as to ascend to great psychological and psychic heights, etc., etc. ancient Egyptian teachings. I am the mind, the eternal teacher, etc., etc. And what religion is. Religion is the term which comes from the Latin word root, right, which means back, and legon. Okay, so that's, what's his name? Jordan Maxwell says it's to do over again. Okay, here it means back, and legon, which means to hold, to link, to bind. Therefore, the essence of true religion is that of linking back, specifically linking its followers back to the original source, God. Human beings, their spirits having come from the universal, all-pervading consciousness, God, have forgotten their origin and therefore wander the earth without knowledge of their true divine nature. Religion is supposed to be a process of assisting men and women to reconnect with the Creator, God. The human entity, soul, has been deluded into believing that it is composed of a mind and body that exists once and that will die one day. Actually, it is not really a process of reconnection so much as remembering one's true identity. It's as if we have contracted amnesia, forgotten everything, right? This is the true meaning of the biblical statements. Is it not written in your law that ye are gods? That's what Jesus was saying, right? To the Pharisees. Okay, they've been gifted with all the knowledge of God, guardians of the Mosaic law, the Israelites, etc., etc. Supposed to be their teachers, but they're corrupt. They're all pompous and all this sort of stuff, right? We always thought that maybe it's translated wrong, and it might have a apostrophe there, meaning that you are gods, and you belong to God because God created you, in that Eastern mindset, right? But yeah, they're probably at a height, at a level different from everybody else. They got all this knowledge, and that's probably why Christ said, you must know what the Pharisees know, even more, but don't become like the Pharisees who corrupt, pompous, greedy. Yeah, inside or outside they look like they're all holy, clean, holy, etc., etc. But inwardly they're really wicked, unrighteous, like greedy, pompous, all that sort of stuff. You must be on the same level of what they know, right? Knowledge-wise. Okay, the kingdom of Father God is spread upon the earth, and men do not see it. Apparently that's what Jesus said. Although religion in its purest form is a yoga system, the original intent and meaning of the scriptures are often misunderstood, if not distorted. If religions were devoid of corruption and properly understood and practiced, most would provide a suitable system to yoga for their followers. Okay. We came across someone that said religion is not what you think it is. The meaning? It's like you're bound to something yet. You're bound by something. You're chained to something. You're chained by something. Like your religious texts, your organised religion, etc., etc. So apparently that's the actual true definition, but it's been deliberately left out of the dictionaries, right? And so forth. And here it says, many writings which are called Gnostic or knowing Gospels were deleted from the standard text by Roman Emperor Constantine. In the Essene Gospel of Peace, translated by Edmund Bordeaux Shakeley in the early 20th century, from a copy of which was locked away in the Vatican, Jesus states that his teachings are to help guide those seeking to attain his level of consciousness, that is, cosmic consciousness, to become as he was, Christ. Okay, anointed. An anointed one, right? Okay, these are the Gnostics. Okay, these with these mystery schools, these knowledge and all that sort of stuff, right? But it was poo-pooed by others, perhaps the Jews, Hebrews, Israelites, right? Because it was like pseudepigrapha, etc., etc. They didn't believe in this, they didn't believe in that. Yes, they did. Yeah, so there's many that have proven that it's was something that was founded by Simon Magus, the guy who tried to buy the power of the Holy Spirit from Peter in Peter scriptures about Peter. How he dealt with him, he could fly. So Peter prayed to Almighty God, if this is of the devil, if this is evil, whatever, Lord, take away his powers of flight. And he did, and he crashed to the ground, broke his leg apparently. And maybe people gave him a boot, so pass him by, what a fake, all that sort of stuff. Etc., etc., right? Supposedly, the father or the founder of Gnosticism. Okay. Salvation is accomplished through the efforts of the individual, they're saying. There is no mediator between man and his or her salvation, Egyptian proverb. So what they're basically saying there, if they knew about Christ, right? No. There's no one between God and man. No mediator. No interjector. No intermediary. Okay, so the Pope is not, today would not be a mediator as claimed or as he claims, okay, between man and his or her salvation, and Jesus wouldn't be either. Okay, so they're denying that. They would be denying that, right? If they're in their statement, they're saying that it's accomplished through your efforts of the individual. There's no mediator between man and his or her salvation. It's between you and God, according to them. For 300 to 600 years after the Nicene Council, the Roman emperors and later on the Christian leaders set about to destroy any vestige of religious doctrines that did not comply with the doctrines of their new religion. Yeah, the Mother Church, right? Roman Catholic Church, the Roman State Church of Constantine, who is a pagan, Christian or Christian pagan. Okay, he got into the Roman Senate decree that he was born divine, all this sort of stuff. Put up statues of himself behind his Arch of Triumph. When the sun shone on it, it all glowed and all that sort of stuff, and people saw it and worshipped it or whatever. He said he was more powerful than Apollo. You have to go and look at the Jovovici guy, Timeline guys, video on that when they looked at the Arch of Triumph and found, hey, this is missing. Hey, someone's chipped out the face of Constantine and these 4 pagan gods depicted on there. No insignia on their shields or their clothing of his vision. We saw the cross, and Christ said to him, and with this symbol you can conquer, right? In my name you can conquer, all that sort of stuff. It wasn't there. Him and a lady that was expert went up there on a crane, right? A platform, and had a look at it. They weren't allowed to touch it, but they said, oh yeah, okay, we'll get on this crane thing and go up there and have a look. There's a bit of a gap between them, and that's what they realised, that maybe this Constantine was talking a load of rubbish about his vision. Okay, so yoga in India, early Indian philosophy. The earliest known civilization of India, the Indus Valley culture or Dravidians, developed the first advanced philosophical system in India. As in Egypt, Dravidian philosophy and mythology centered around the male and female fertility and sexuality, the root of yoga systems which relate to the sublimation of sexual energy, kundalini. This is evidenced by the Dravidian steles of vegetation gods in ichthyophallic poses, one called the Black One, and those of female goddesses with plants growing out of their wombs. Its precepts developed in the Tantra Yoga, Jain, most respects to the Egyptian mythology, Jain, Hindu, so that's Jainism, Hindu, Buddhist and Vedanta philosophical systems, and are similar in most respects to the Egyptian mythology of Asar, the Lord of the Perfect Black, and ichthyophallic vegetation god, and the sacred cow goddess Hetheru-Aset, the goddess of fertility and sexuality. So there again is a correlation between the ancient Egyptians of Kemites with the Hindus, the Indians of ancient India. Okay, so they basically correlated, and one said, okay, we believe this is how it is, and the other said, yeah, we adopt that, we believe that too, here's what you could probably use, back and forth like that. That's what the correlation is, okay, between the two. Jain philosophy, around 1200 BCE, the qualities of matter, the universe is a living organism, imperishable in its true essence, and so forth. Vedanta Yoga and Samkhya philosophy, around plus 1000 BCE to present. Vedanta philosophy originated from the ancient spiritual scriptures of India, called the Vedas. More specifically, Vedanta refers to the end of the Vedas, or the scriptures commonly referred to as the Upanishads, which constitute a summary or distillation of the highest philosophy of the Vedas. Vedanta philosophy, as it exists in the present is a combination of Buddhist psychology, Hindu mythology, and ancient mystical philosophies, because all of this Shinto, Zen, Buddhism related stuff was presented to China, etc., by a certain person that travelled there. These monks were always falling asleep during their meditations or something. So in this temple, they had all these exercises they were doing, which proves that it's proven by the apparently footprints, because they stamped a lot, all this sort of stuff in these old temple floors, and that kept them awake. All this sort of stuff. So that that's supposedly where martial arts and all that first started, Shaolin and all that sort of stuff, right? So there's a connection there. Vedanta, which includes the 16 yogas, 8 major, 8 minor, adapted from the Buddhist wheel of life, developed as an alternative to the patriarchal and racist Brahmanic style system. Okay. Well, we don't really know if they were racist. They just had a caste system, right? Where, okay, you're in poverty or this sort of stuff. That's because you are reincarnated, and that's your karmic payback, right? For what you did in a former life, etc., etc. Yeah, it's kind of a not so nice system, right? Foreigners go there and see this poor person on the side of the road. He's deliberately cut his finger off or something like that. So if you're sorry for him, supposedly, begging for food, and you give it to him, they say, no, you don't give him anything. Why is that? Oh, because he's deserving. That's his karmic payback. He's reincarnated. The sins he committed in the former life. That's why he's in that situation, etc., etc. Christians go to give that person some money or whatever, or some food. No, don't do that. They're told not to do that by these Brahmins, apparently. Okay, and it goes on and on. Compared to the Bible, on the essence of God, God is everything, or everywhere in all things. On the name of God, I am that I am. Jesus speaks of his own origin and identity. I and the Father, God, are one. Okay, there's a footnote indicated there from the Bible around 1. Was it the 1st century of the Christian era? Compare the preceding statements in the Indian Upanishads and the Christian Bible to the following ancient Egyptian scriptures: Metu Neta, sacred speech, taken from the Egyptian book of Coming Forth by Day, erroneously called the Book of the Dead by Wallace Budge, the Egyptologist, who translated all those hieroglyphics into English, etc. 10,000 to 5,000 BCE and other hieroglyphic texts. Nuk Pu Nuk, I am that I am. In reference to the relationship between God and mankind, Netef Anuk, Netef. He is and I am He. The following statements from the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth by Day, or the Book of the Dead, illustrate the attributes of God, Neta, and the concepts of monotheism and absolute existence. 1. I was 1, I became 3. So that's like a triune, isn't it? A trinity. 2. Atum Ra Ta A. 3 and 1. Triune again. But Egyptian, right? It's making a comparison, as it said, with the triune Godhead, the Trinity. 3. Well, these authors are: God is one and alone, none other exists with him. God is one, the one who has made all things. In other words, it's triune. He's triune, right? 4. God is a spirit, a hidden spirit, the spirit of spirits, the divine God. So what we were saying earlier, that he's one. Okay, they're 3, but they're 1. So it appears to be monotheistic. So you got Judaism and Islam stressing, no, God has no equal. He's just one. One and one alone, right? Islam adds a bit more spice to it and says, and there's only one God, he's got no equal, and then there's the Prophet Muhammad. Okay? So they really are staunch with the monotheism thing. But there's actually 3 of them: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Throughout their texts, Jewish texts, the Muslims are basically a sect that's emerged from that root, Judaism, right? Because Muhammad, their prophet, knew of the people of the book, etc., etc. He liked them, he loved them, whatever, and their religion, or their language was dying out. Arabic was the new language, or the lingua franca, all this sort of stuff. So he wanted to preserve their writings. So he probably utilised a lot of theirs, the Syriac, etc. Right, probably, but didn't understand this triune Godhead, so he left it out. Wanted a new religion for his people, etc., etc. Right? And out came Mohammedism, which later became Islam. Okay? That religion of peace, so they say. Okay, so 5, God is from the beginning, and he has been from the beginning. God existed from old and was before anything else had being. God existed when nothing else existed, and what now exists God created. Before creation, when not was created the earth, not were created men, not were created the gods, not was created death. So there's no men, no creation, no death. 6, God is truth, and God has established the earth thereupon. 7, God is life, and through him only humankind lives. God gives life to men and women, breathing the breath of life into their nostrils. So there you go. There's comparisons between the Egyptian belief, religion, and the Christian scriptures, the Bible, the Christian scriptures, right? The Bible, in other words. Okay, that's what it's saying there.